These lunches built railroads, mined coal, and fueled 12-hour shifts, but no one packs them anymore. Before protein bars and vending machines, the working man's lunch was hot, hearty, and made to last. They fed the backbone of a generation, and now they've vanished from the table. We're going to start our list off with a plowman's lunch, which is actually a dish best served cold. This little work of art features a lot of sharp cheddar cheese, which definitely makes it a hit with fans of dairy. The next thing that makes a plowman's lunch so zesty and flavorful is pickled onions and a good layer of Branston pickles for safe measuring. Now all you need is some crusty bread and some hard-boiled eggs, and you pretty much have lunch served. It was more common for people to take things like cold cuts of meat, pork pies, or an apple slice for some variety in the food, but eggs were the one thing you would see non-stop with this dish. It's a pretty well-balanced blend of different flavors. You have a nice little vinegary tang from the pickles, but it doesn't get overwhelming thanks to the cheese helping to cut through all that. Eventually, the cheese mixes really well with the bread, and after it sets and coats the pickles in there, you get an incredibly delicious meal. This was a meal right out of the 50s and 60s, and funnily enough, this was something that was marketed by the Cheese Bureau in Britain so that cheese sales could go up a lot. And so the thing back then with lunch was that you really wanted it to be portable. You didn't have a little deli on the corner with a killer quesadilla or Uber Eats back then. Dishes were often made with energy and transportability in mind, and that's why stuff like meat hand pies got as popular as they did. Not only were they really easy to stuff in your bag and walk around, but they were resistant to getting spoiled, so they could stay in there for quite a while if you got your break late, no worries. As far as the taste went, it goes down just like any meat pie, though most people were fond of using different cuts of pork and ground beef. A historical act about these is that during the 19th century, they were pretty much the ideal lunch for Cornish tin miners. The reason was that since mine workers usually had dirty hands, they would grip the pie by the edge of the crust and eat the rest, throwing away the part that got dirty. They got popular because of how satisfying the flavor is, though. It's rich and meaty, and that buttery crust with a peppery seasoning only helps to elevate this humble pie into a proper midday lunch. A cold baked bean sandwich is what you think it is. It's just cold. 2 slices of modest bread, a familiar presence in the tomato-based sauce, with a generous spread of baked beans. The flavor is something that's a little bit sweet, a little bit tangy, but it's really just the textures that work here so well. The bread is chewy, but the beans mesh together as soon as you bite into them, and as the little bits of sauce squeezed out when you bite into the sandwich, it all makes for one flavorful bite. Cold baked bean sandwiches were a pretty common go-to lunch meal for people in the middle of the 20th century, especially in American households. This was even more true during the 40s, especially among blue-collar workers. Factory towns would often see people buying as much as canned beans as they could during grocery trips. People had a pretty practical approach to their food during these decades, and while the sandwich had no presentation or flair, it definitely got the job done. And it could do that for you today as well, because this is still as reliable of lunch now as it was back then, especially if you're pressed for time. Scotch eggs are actually a funny one. You would most commonly associate them with pub culture in Britain, right? I mean, that's how most people think of them. That's their history too. People would get off work or get a lunch break and decide to hit the local pub with the lads for a few Scotch eggs. What really are they, though? A Scotch egg is just an egg packed with protein. It's a hard-boiled or soft-boiled egg that gets this blanket of seasoned sausage meat, and nestled inside that, it gets coated in breadcrumbs, upon which it gets deep-fried until it's completely golden brown. So yeah, it's definitely one calorically dense egg, but that also makes it perfect for work because you can carry 2 or 3 of these and they fill you up right away. The crust is exactly as crispy as you're thinking it is, by the way, and I know you're getting ideas of how succulent this must be to bite into. Let me tell you, you're right on the money. The spiced pork on the inside is something divine, and the creamy egg center just brings everything together for the perfect flavor experience. The flavors also change depending on what spices you use and what herbs you pair it with, so you can really experiment a lot with this dish. Corned beef salad sandwiches are a creamy and savory blend of deli-style corned beef. They typically come mixed with your usual suspects. A little bit of mayonnaise here, some mustard there, and if you really want to be extra, some chopped pickles. These get served between sandwich bread in specific, but if you don't have that, any normal white bread will also do. So these actually have a tangier taste than you would think. And to combat that, a lot of people would also use the honey mustard sauce as a substitute for mayonnaise, or even pair it up with the mayonnaise. Some versions would also throw in scrambled eggs or shredded lettuce for a better texture that plays with the corned beef itself. This is something that was extremely popular in America during the middle of the 20th century, especially after World War II ended. People were trying to bounce back from the effects of it all, and canned meats really helped save some bucks. It's something you started seeing not just at work, but at school lunches, picnics, and even potlucks, and this was doubly true for the Midwest and different parts of the South. Let's talk pork pies for a hot second. Basically, these were the original British meat snacks, and a lot of immigrants that first came on over to America popularized this dish as a working-class old reliable that you could whip up whenever you wanted. A classic pork pie is this round pastry jam-packed with ground pork, tucked into a firm and crumbly hot water crust. The top is usually sealed, and you have a layer of pork jelly poured in after baking, which sets as soon as the meat begins to cool. I know that might sound like a bit much, but it really does work. Also, the peppery seasonings aren't something you can miss here. They really make the dish stand out, and the cold, dense pork center contrasts amazingly well with the buttery crust. It's something that people preferred eating cold because that's when everything would truly set in, and the jelly would be at its best, but you could have it hot too. Pork pies are genuinely a vintage recipe though, going back all the way to medieval England. They took off in the 16th century. They were a massive hit with fox hunters, and the only ones that could hunt those were upper-class dudes in red coats. Eventually, it became a no-nonsense meal that everybody knew about. Beef dripping toast is pretty much entirely nostalgic comfort food. Let me run you by a typical dripping-based toast. You take some thick slices of crusty bread, which ideally should be warm or toasted but will work with whatever the day gives us. You slather on some beef drippings and some salt, pepper, malt vinegar, and whatever else you really like on your toast, and you're good to go. Beef drippings are just the rendered fat from roasts, and most of the time they still have the little browned jelly bits mixed in with the toast. As far as flavors go, you want to imagine a deep umami with a real buttery richness, something that hits like a cozy blanket on a cold day. It's almost as if toast and your regular 20th century Sunday roast had an incredibly greasy baby meant for breakfasts. Beef dripping toast wasn't just popular in America with the working class. It was the same deal in Britain, and it was served for, honestly, any meal of the day. Dirty cheap, really filling, and something that takes about 15 minutes to prepare? Yeah, nobody was going to be letting go of this recipe anytime soon. Pickled egg and bread is one of those old-school snacks that kind of raises an eyebrow when you first hear about it, but once you try it, you actually end up firmly seated on the bandwagon. It's exactly what the description on the tin says too. It's a pickled egg, usually drowning in vinegar and different kinds of tangy complementary spices, with a slice of plain buttered bread or a soft roll. No fancy layering, no Worcestershire sauce or anything, just the classic sharp punch of a pickle, balanced by the familiar, comforting tastes of egg and bread. Flavor-wise, this is a full-on vibe. The egg has a really nice texture that goes wonderfully with the pickles, and the acidic kick from the pickled brine really helps to contrast with the richness of the yolk of the egg. You take that, mix in some warm buttered bread, and you get yourself a meal that's the whole package. Creamy, soft, chewy, sharp, tangy, and whatever other flavor profile you can guess in your head. Pickled eggs are actually something that you'd find in New England more than anywhere else in America, but they've always been something of a working-class classic. The miner's pasty is something with an incredibly serious backstory. It's this handheld meat and potato pie that gets wrapped in a crimpled pastry. Usually the pastries were pretty thick too, and a host of ingredients on the inside. I'm talking diced beef, potatoes, Swede rutabaga, caramelized or just sliced onions, and a generous sprinkle of salt and pepper. This meal was designed to survive a few rounds in hell because it was made so that it would last you the entire day. The target audience for the meal was laborers and people who worked physically intensive jobs, but they wanted to make the kind of thing that these sorts of workers could still carry around in their bags or pockets. The flavor is also something that really helps restore your spunk for the next shift. It's earthy, homey, and rich, the kind of thing that really feels like a home-cooked meal as soon as you bite into it. Miners' pasties were the go-to lunch for a lot of different kinds of miners everywhere, not to be confused with the Cornish tin pasties we just talked about. Miners would typically rely exclusively on these because these things were built for the rough life. No plates, spoons, or forks are needed, only your hands and how fast you can finish these and clock back in at work. Spam fritters are also pretty much exactly what you think aren't. They sound like a cutesy dish your wife whips up for you before you come home. But this is actually a wartime dish through and through. Thick slices of canned Spam dipped in batter and then deep fried until they're gloriously golden, pure fish and chip style. The outside is as crunchy and hot as you would expect, and the inside is tender, slightly salty and addictively chewy in the way only Spam can be. The flavor is literally just comfort food. It's slightly smoky, the perfect amount of meaty without being overwhelming, and it balances out with the salty notes. This is a dish that makes no apologies and instead chooses to embrace its greasy nature to give you a taste of nostalgia wherever you are. Spam fritters were something that exploded in popularity during World War II, and meat rationing was still a massive thing. Spam, courtesy of American Lend-Lease supplies, started to become what people were relying on because of how easy it was to work with. It was the working-class answer to the age-old question of, how do we make canned meat something that feels like a proper meal? And Spam fritters stuck around even after the war, too, especially in towns where factory work was a lot more common than any other kind of job. Hey, you might not be fighting a war anymore, but that 9 to 5 is still no joke. Stew in a thermos is really a classic. This is something that combines a lot of different things to make a unique meal that you wouldn't think of on your own. A thermos is something you usually use for drinks. It doesn't always have to be water, but stew's in there? Not really anyone's first thought. For those who need a warm meal right on the go, though, this was the most reliable thing in the world, especially when you would be working in the winter. Thick and tender chunks of meat mixed in with roto vegetables like carrots and potatoes and simmered in a rich and flavorful broth that gets thickened up even more with some flour and cornstarch. I mean, what's not to like? The flavor oozes out of that thermos as soon as you open it is next level. Stew in a thermos was a game changer for workers during the 50s and 60s. It didn't matter what your job was, whether you were a truck driver, worked a night shift in a factory, or ran numbers behind a desk. Even kids in school would take it along with them. The thermos lets you pack a hearty and warm meal that could pretty much survive hours inside the bottle without losing its essence. You had to have some trial and error here first, though, because most people would often make the stew too liquidy on their first try or two, and it would end up spilling over once you unscrewed the lid. Thermos-steeped stew became something of a regional favorite in northern areas where the temperature was really known to drop, and I think it's a cute little dish we could bring back today, too. Cold roast beef sandwiches are the perfect example of how less is sometimes more, and this wasn't just more, it was iconic. You've got some juicy roast beef, slice after slice stacked on top of each other, sandwiched between slightly crusty white bread. It's literally a Scooby-Doo snack. The beef is something seasoned with salt, pepper, and a lot of mustard, or horseradish. It's actually something that packs a pretty substantial kick. Now, sometimes people would add a slice of cheddar or Swiss cheese and throw in some fresh vegetables like lettuce and tomatoes. But the star of this show was always that decadent, juicy roast beef that was just thin enough. It had an incredibly satisfying flavor, and it was something that was really just carried by the natural flavors that were already there. No extra work needed. Cold roast beef sandwiches were something that became really common to see in American lunchboxes and deli counters by the early 20th century, especially during and after the wartime era and the Great Depression. It was one of the most economical lunches you could get for yourself, and people really wanted to be spending as little on food as possible, which is pretty different from our mindset today. The egg and cress sandwich is literally so perfect yet basic that it makes no sense this dish ever faded into the sidelines. Hard-boiled eggs get chopped up and mixed with mayonnaise or butter before they're topped with a generous serving of cress between 2 slices of soft white bread. This is an egg salad if I've ever heard of one, and the creamy richness of it combined with the peppery crest makes for a refreshing, zingy bite that really knocks you into the present moment. Egg and cress sandwiches are something you would consider British, right? Just off of the vibes? You'd be smart to assume that. This sandwich was a really popular choice in the middle of the 20th century, especially because after World War II, rationing might have eased up. But that doesn't mean that meat became widely available overnight. These days, egg and cress sandwiches are just a retro memory, but they used to be the ideal lunch to take to work or school. Cornbread and buttermilk is pretty much as Southern as it gets. It's something that's completely a classic comfort food of the South. And cornbread is something that has a deeply rich history in that region anyway, almost as rich as the flavor. Especially when you pair it with sweet buttermilk. Cornbread is this crumbly bread that's made with cornmeal if you didn't already know. People would typically just have it ready in a cast iron skillet so that it would get those nice little crispy edges that you all love so much. You pair that up with buttermilk, and it adds an entirely new level of richness and texture to the dish that just wasn't there before. Cornbread and buttermilk is a combination that's deeply rooted in Southern culinary traditions. This goes all the way back to the Native American tribes that first taught European settlers how to harvest and cultivate corn and really take advantage of it. The Southern version didn't get its start in life until after the Civil War, which is when cornmeal started to become more widely used, mostly because it was affordable again. You want to talk about some real comfort food? Nothing better than some fried potato cakes. These crispy little beauties are made with mashed potatoes that have been mixed with flour, butter, and sometimes a modest amount of your typical herbal seasonings like parsley, rosemary, and oregano. The trick, though, is pan-frying them. You really want to aim for that crispy, browned but slightly burnt crust that forms on the exterior, and how you handle the potato cakes really matters. Just flipping these in the pan won't do. You'll have to get good at frying those sides evenly too, so you get a very well-rounded bite. They became a staple of home cooking in the southern and midwestern areas, and they were also considered an almost perfect way to get rid of leftover mashed potatoes without them going to waste. It was a great way to turn yesterday's dinner into today's lunch, and they were also amazing for a work lunch because you could carry them in a simple box and eat them up very easily. This wasn't food that you had to cut and pick through, you could just dig in. The process was also really relaxing, something that was borderline therapeutic. You just take the mashed potatoes and begin mashing them into small patties, and then you get your skillet ready. They're still as popular today as they always were, but they're rarely what people take along for lunch to work now. Bacon fat crackers are the definition of making use of whatever you have on hand. These little greasy bacon bastards are something you get by mixing bacon fat with flour, salt, and a little bit of sugar. Then, you roll the dough out as thin as you can and begin baking until you get that perfectly golden color we all know and love. The end result is arguably the best cracker you've ever had the pleasure of eating. It's delicious and smoky, and it has a salty aftertaste from the bacon fat, which makes every bite a meat lover's dream. The texture is light but really crispy, and the richness of the flavor is enough to sound all the alarms in your taste buds. Bacon fat crackers are one of those southern snacks that came out of the zero-waste mentality most people had towards their food, especially when it came to making use of stuff like meat. Bacon was an especially prized ingredient, and the leftover fat was something people tried to preserve as much as they could, whenever they could. People would use it in frying and cooking vegetables, or even their baking. It was also just a really good way to stretch ingredients when times were tough. Now, on a boring day at work, maybe the last place your mind would go to is an equally boring meal, right? And when you hear about boiled sausage and pickles, it's hard not to assume the worst. Do they really have nothing else going on there? Boiled sausage is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Sausage that's been simmered for a while in water or a seasoned broth until it gets cooked through. And the most common kinds of sausages to use back in the 20th century were bratwurst or kielbasa. Honestly, I think that people just ate this because it was quick, filling, and easy to carry around, while being pretty cheap. They couldn't go wrong with something like this, but they definitely weren't bringing a smile to anyone's face with this either. It was one of those things that worked a lot better with an icy beer though, but I can definitely understand why this didn't make the cut throughout the ages. Mustard green wraps are something you actually started seeing in the office space more toward the end of the 20th century, specifically the 80s and 90s. Before I dazzle you with details of this wonderful wrap, let's talk about why that was. See, health scares were becoming an everyday fact of American life, especially with the drive towards animal cruelty-free meals and vegetarian diets. People were generally becoming more conscious about their lard/bacon grease/deep frying reliant lifestyles, and what that was doing to things like their blood pressure, cholesterol, and more. Mustard green wraps were one of those dishes that started popping up as a result of all of this. And essentially, you just take fresh mustard greens and wrap them with seasoned but not fried meats, beans, or even rice. Sometimes people would go purely vegetarian with them and throw in sautéed vegetables, but sometimes people would go the meat lovers route and use the green wrap as a little, well, at least I'm doing something kind of thing. The fun part about these is that they actually come from African American communities, and if you ever have the fortune of trying an authentic one from a black mom, you really shouldn't pass up the opportunity. Cold fish cakes are something you would never miss out on whenever you would visit any kind of coastal town. They were the product of combining flaked cooked fish, which was often just cod and haddock, with mashed potatoes, herbs, and different kinds of spice blends and rubs. Then, people would shape the fish meat into patties and fry them, giving you some high-class maritime comfort food. The char of cold fish cakes came from the fact that once you let them chill and cool down, they became even nicer. That's because the fish started to become firmer once it cooled down, and that meant the crispy outer shell as well, so that first bite was honestly addictive. Despite being such a fun dish, they have a pretty serious origin story. These were a popular leftover dish in both America and Britain, and pairing fish with potatoes was a budget-friendly way to stretch what you had in the pantry while getting a proper, healthy meal in. Also, some tartar sauce would turn this into a 5-star work meal. Savory oatcakes are as rustic of a snack as they come, but they're also a warm hug when it's your lunch break, and you can only think of how badly you miss home. Made with oats, flour, butter, salt, and water, these flat round cakes were the difference between powering through that last hour at work and handing in your notice period sometimes. You can either bake these or cook them on a griddle, but the end result is usually a chewy, dense, nutty oatcake with a hint of rich butteriness. Sometimes these would be made with herbs and cheese for extra flavor, but the classic oatcake was always something that was simple because it needed to be. Savory oatcakes were something you would see a lot in New England thanks to British immigrants, but they spread from there to almost every part of America in the 20th century. Roasted chestnuts and salt were something that was as cozy as it got. Roasting chestnuts doesn't just bring out that sweet, nutty flavor that's so abundant in them. It also brings back warm memories of family picnics, vibes of home and comfort, and just the kind of atmosphere that can put you to sleep pretty quickly. When they're dusted with a little bit of salt, it makes this balance of savory and sweet that becomes borderline addictive. The chestnuts get a bit crispy once you begin to roast them, but the inside goes through a completely different transformation. This actually starts to soften, and it almost gets to a creamy point. It's almost like a natural candy, which is insane. You can also crack the outer shell and scoop up the creamy inside if you want to eat it that way. The history of roasted chestnuts is something that's deeply steeped in tradition too. They've been something of a staple in our country for a long time, dating back to the time of Native American tribes who would rely on foraging to get their daily sustenance. They're also something that has always been very popular during the winter season because, well, do I need to explain this? Obviously, you want a roasted something during winter, and what better something than a refreshing, crispy chestnut? Liver pate sandwiches are all about the rich and savory flavors that you can get out of a pate. This is that perfect balance of smooth and earthy, and a liver pate shows you why liver isn't such a bad idea. Now, the most common kinds of livers that were used for this dish were chicken, duck, or pork, and they would be mixed with butter, cream, herbs, and seasonings until you got the ideal flavor. The pate is something that's spread generously on bread, and typically, rye bread is what works best here if you do not have a fresh baguette on hand, which I imagine most of you don't. Creating a meal that indulges you a little while also being packed with protein and flavor, this is a dish that makes you feel like the rich kid in the office, especially if you made it on your own. It's also the perfect thing to take to any sort of potluck. Now, the history behind this is something that really goes back to several countries, and you could pretty much make an entire video out of that alone if you wanted to. Americans had their own equivalent of this with things like beef drippings toast, but it wasn't exactly as smooth or refreshing, which is a weird thing to say about ground liver. But the French have been known to work wonders with food on more than one occasion. Hard cheese and pickle jars are as much of a British snack as you can imagine. Tangy, satisfying, and true to the brand, these sharp and crumbly hard cheeses cut through most flavors like a hot knife. It's a taste you can't ever miss no matter what you're combining it with. And the richness and fullness of the cheese works so well with the acidity and crunch of the pickles. It helps to balance out the overwhelming flavor of the cheese too, especially if you're working with a cheese that really has a presence like hard ones. The history behind this combination is again rooted in some pretty practical eating. Hard cheeses were common in the United Kingdom for centuries, and they brought them on over to America when the first immigrants started settling and putting roots down in New England. They were cheap, easy to store, and they'd last an incredibly long time. Pickle jars would be something that would be in everyone's pantry, and eventually, the combination was something Americans opened their mind to once their now British neighbors put them onto the idea. Ham and butter baguettes are something you would think is as French as it gets, but it's actually a little more on the rustic side. This simple and super satisfying combination is a straight classic. I want you to picture a fresh and crusty baguette, pretty much the best bread you can bite into, and now, let's take that fantasy one step further and stuff the baguette full of rich, creamy butter. Okay, we're not done just yet. Top it off with these thin slices of salty cured ham, and you're finally there, the ultimate bread experience. Well, at least as far as making a bread-based meal that actually feels like something in about 15 minutes goes. Now, the next thing you really want with this dish is a nice dip, and that can be ketchup, ranch sauce, garlic mayonnaise, or barbecue sauce, whatever you like. This is something that's quintessentially French, though. Don't get me wrong. That's where we got the idea from as well, and it became a cornerstone of deli culture during the 20th century as well. It's a quick lunch, and it doubles as the perfect picnic meal. Raisin bread with cheese is a combination that you don't really expect to work, but actually ends up being unexpectedly delightful once you try it. It's something that really blends sweet and savory in a way that you won't see coming, so it's worth it just for the experience alone. Raisin bread itself is a soft but slightly sweet and spicy bread that contrasts incredibly well with the sharp and salty flavor of cheese. You can get a different result each time depending on the kind of cheese you prefer or have on hand as well. So with sharp cheddar cheese, you can definitely notice that the raisin bread starts to complement the cheese more than it fuses flavors with it. But with the blue cheese, you can actually notice the opposite, as in, they both begin to make their own unique flavor. Now, the origins of this dish go back to the European traditions that settlers brought over surrounding fruit bread combinations with rich and savory cheeses. The entire idea was to get addicted to the contrast, which a lot of Britishers apparently found to be the zenith of breakfast ideas. It's an example of how different kinds of traditions have really left their mark on American recipes and eating. And it's a great nostalgic throwback to the 20th century if you're looking for a nice Sunday breakfast. Curried sardine salad sandwiches blend the robust, pungent flavors of sardines with the exotic, spicy warmth of curry powder, producing a sandwich that's anything but ordinary. These culinary delights originated in mid-20th century America, when canned sardines were an economical choice in the pantry, especially in the aftermath of World War II. This particular recipe mixes mashed sardines with curry powder, creamy mayonnaise, a splash of lemon juice, and crisp chopped celery, creating a spread that's rich in both flavor and texture. Spread generously on bread, this salad can be adorned with fresh lettuce or cucumber slices, adding a crunch that contrasts beautifully with the creamy filling. In England, it's common to find variations including chopped apples or raisins, adding a sweet note, while American adaptations might toss in hard-boiled eggs or capers, enhancing the flavor profile further. bacon cheddar potato skins epitomize the fusion of simple ingredients into a beloved American bar snack. This dish, which emerged prominently in the culinary scene during the 1970s, utilizes russet potatoes known for their thick skin and starchy content, making them ideal for baking and frying. The preparation involves halving the potatoes and scooping out most of the flesh, leaving about a 1/4 inch attached to the skin. The hollowed-out skins are then baked or deep-fried until crisp and golden. Once crisped, these skins are stuffed with generous amounts of sharp cheddar cheese and crisp crumbled bacon. The cheddar is chosen for its melting properties and strong flavor, which pairs well with the smoky bacon. The filled skins are then returned to the oven until the cheese melts into a bubbly, golden pool. The dish's widespread popularity helped elevate the status of the potato from a simple side dish to a featured player in the culinary world. Peanut butter and bacon sandwiches represent a bold fusion of flavors, combining the smooth, slightly sweet taste of peanut butter with the crispy, savory bite of bacon. This combination was part of a broader mid-century trend of experimenting with sweet and savory pairings, which included other famous concoctions like chicken and waffles. Popular in mid-20th century America, this sandwich typically involves a generous spread of peanut butter on toasted bread, topped with strips of crunchy bacon. The king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, was known to enjoy this sandwich with added slices of banana, introducing a sweet layer to the salty-sweet mix. This quirky combination was emblematic of a period when Americans were open to experimenting with diverse and unexpected flavor pairings, creating memorable and satisfying meals. Fish sticks became part of the school lunch menu shortly after their commercial introduction in the 1950s. Made from white fish like cod or pollock, these sticks are cut into manageable pieces, breaded and then deep-fried or baked to create a crispy exterior with a tender and flaky interior. This preparation method not only makes fish sticks easy to eat, but also appealing to the palates of young students, who may otherwise be reluctant to consume fish. The breading, often seasoned with spices and herbs, adds a savory flavor that complements the mild taste of the fish, making it a popular choice in school cafeterias. Fish sticks are typically served with tartar sauce or ketchup and a side of vegetables, providing a balanced meal with proteins, carbs, and vitamins. Their ease of preparation, including the ability to cook them from frozen, aligns well with the needs of large-scale meal production typical in schools. Green tomato pie is something that'll have you running back for seconds. First off, you gotta hand it to whoever made this dish for their ingenuity. It's not every day you get a banger of a dish that actually is centered around making the green tomato shine out of everything else. But Southern home cooking will do that for you. Charlotte's green tomato pie in particular makes use of some typical Southern spices like cinnamon and nutmeg and unripened green tomatoes, and has you making a pie that'll rival even the best apple ones you could find at bakeries. Green tomatoes have an especially great harvest during the fall, so that's when this dish would see the most mileage. You would find houses all over the South constantly making green tomato pies, and this specific pie is an example of how you don't need anything fancy to create something that can get everyone at the table. You know what's even funnier? This dish is one of the best things to come out of mock cooking, because it was made to imitate mock apple pie and mincemeat pies. An imitation of an imitation ends up giving us something that was a big part of Southern culture. Who would have thought? Cornbread-topped frijoles blends the heartiness of traditional Mexican beans with the comfort of Southern American cornbread, creating a casserole that is both nourishing and satisfying. This dish layers seasoned beans, often pintos or black beans, cooked with peppers, onions, and spices, topped with a layer of cornbread batter that bakes into a crusty topping. Originating from a blend of Native American and Mexican cooking techniques, the dish was adapted over time to include a variety of beans and sometimes meat, making each rendition a local specialty. The dish not only satisfies with its rich flavors and textures, but also serves as a practical one-dish meal that could easily feed a family or a gathering. Cornbread-topped frijoles became favored for its economical use of basic pantry staples and its ability to be prepared ahead of time, making it ideal for communal meals and family dinners. Spam and pineapple sandwiches capture a uniquely American taste for sweet and savory combinations that soared in popularity during World War II. Introduced to the American military in 1937, Spam became a staple in many households. The recipe for Spam and pineapple sandwiches represents the culinary influence of Hawaii on the mainland, which intensified after Hawaii became a state in 1959. The sandwich features crispy slices of fried Spam paired with sweet, slightly charred pineapple rings, nestled between slices of toasted bread. This blend of salty meat with the caramelized sweetness of pineapple provides a delightful contrast in flavors. Optionally dressed with mayonnaise or a slice of cheese, these sandwiches reflect a significant Hawaiian influence on mainland American cuisine, particularly during the 1950s when Hawaiian culture gained widespread appeal. The result is a dish that marries diverse culinary traditions in a uniquely satisfying way. As Mediterranean diets gained popularity in the United States for their health benefits, the layered Mediterranean dip emerged as a favored choice for its delectable mix of flavors and healthful attributes. Widely introduced in the 1990s, this dish layers hummus, tzatziki, olives, diced tomatoes, cucumbers, and feta cheese, each layer offering a unique texture and flavor. Though traditionally served with pita chips as an appetizer, this dish also serves beautifully as a substantial lunch option, especially when paired with a fresh salad or grilled vegetables. Its popularity highlights a growing American trend towards dishes that are not only nutritious, but also substantial enough to serve as a main course at casual lunches or gatherings. Peanut butter and jelly bars take the quintessential American sandwich and transform it into a dessert format that is both nostalgic and delicious. This treat is prepared by layering a base of crumbly, buttery dough in a baking dish, spreading a generous amount of peanut butter and then jelly over the base, and topping it with more of the crumbly dough. The bars are then baked until the topping is lightly browned, resulting in a dessert that is rich in flavor and has a satisfying texture contrast between the soft filling and the crunchy topping. These bars incorporate the familiar flavors of peanut butter and jelly in a form that is easy to distribute and consume, making them an excellent addition to school lunch menus. Peanut butter and jelly bars not only provide a source of energy, but also bring a sense of comfort and nostalgia to the dining hall. You hear the name rumaki and you might start thinking about some pretty exotic dishes, but it's actually more of a humble appetizer that picks a few flavors and does them really, really well. It was also made at Trader Vic's, a Polynesian-style restaurant right here in Uncle Sam's USA, which I'm sure you didn't see coming either. I wouldn't blame you for thinking it's exotic, since at tiki parties it was definitely considered that, and when tiki culture as a whole started erupting into the mainstream of American eating, it was still sought after, with just as much interest. The dish itself also makes use of some things that aren't familiar, and some that are, like chicken livers, water chestnuts, and bacon. It was a really good hors d'oeuvre that boomed in popularity after the World War II era, though you'd be pretty stumped if you tried to go out and look for it today. Still, it's kind of sad we can't go out to parties and experience chestnuts and crispy bacon anymore, wouldn't you agree? Or is tiki cooking not really up your alley? Turkey and cranberry sandwiches cleverly repurpose the quintessential Thanksgiving leftovers into an enticing sandwich that marries the savory flavor of turkey with the sweet tang of cranberry sauce. This tasty combination rose to popularity in mid-20th century America, showcasing an inventive way to transform holiday leftovers into delightful new meals. The sandwich is simply made by stacking slices of turkey and cranberry sauce, often accompanied by stuffing between two pieces of bread. This culinary creation not only makes excellent use of leftover turkey, but also captures the festive essence of Thanksgiving, melding juicy, savory turkey slices with the sharp sweetness of cranberry sauce in a sandwich that embodies the holiday's spirit. Popularized in American households in the early 1900s, so tender Swiss steak involves a method of preparing a tougher cut of beef, such as round steak, by pounding or rolling before cooking. This tenderizing process, known as Swissing, lends the dish its name, although it has no connection to Switzerland. Traditionally, the steak is browned, then slow-cooked in a rich tomato and onion gravy, allowing the flavors to meld and the meat to become fork tender. This dish showcased an economical approach to cooking during the Great Depression, providing a delicious solution for less desirable cuts of meat. The preparation of Swiss steak often became a Sunday dinner ritual, where its slow cooking could proceed alongside family activities, making it an integral part of the family dining experience. Speedies are also something you would find at gatherings for family or just friends, mostly because no party is complete without a good platter of meat skewers going around a few drinks. So, mostly people would enjoy these most when the meat was lamb, but some areas like California would use chicken or beef too. It was really the grilling where the magic happened. These plates of Speedies set the mood in a party alight. It was a taste that, when they experienced it, people at a party knew that they were in for a really good time. The kind of dish that gets a crowd excited and hungry. There were even Speedafests in Binghamton and all around New York in general. It was a part of the local culture that no big celebration was really complete without. The reason it got popular wasn't just because of a regional preference in New York, though. The dish was bold, tangy, and citrusy, and it could double as an amazing sandwich too. You would find these in street stalls throughout New York, as well as at homes, but nowadays the dish has faded away into irrelevance. Fish stick sandwiches rose to fame in the 1950s, a golden era for convenience foods, when Gorton's of Gloucester in Massachusetts introduced these breaded delights. They were one of the first frozen foods to be promoted during the television advertising boom of the 1950s, which greatly influenced American eating habits. Quick to prepare and mild in flavor, they became a go-to protein source that fit perfectly between slices of bread with a dollop of tartar sauce or ketchup. To make them, you just need to bake or fry the fish sticks until they're crispy, then sandwich them with your choice of condiments. Their popularity reflects a broader post-war shift towards processed foods that offered ease and quick preparation for growing families and bustling households. These sandwiches were particularly favored in school cafeterias, providing a speedy and efficient way to nourish children with a comforting, crunchy meal. The taco salad, which emerged as a popular dish in American cuisine in the 1960s, is a notable example of Tex-Mex culinary fusion. The typical taco salad starts with a crunchy tortilla bowl filled with lettuce, seasoned ground beef, shredded cheese, diced tomatoes, and black olives, finished with dollops of sour cream and salsa. This dish illustrates the adaptability of Mexican cuisine to American tastes, incorporating more cheese and sour cream than traditional Mexican salads. Taco salads became particularly popular in the 1980s, often served at gatherings and potlucks due to their customizable nature, which allowed guests to tailor the toppings to their preferences. Taco salad's popularity also coincided with a growing interest in more casual dining experiences at home, where families and friends could interact in more relaxed settings. I don't need to tell you about how much America and the West in general love rice pudding. It's been something that's helped rural and urban populations get through some disastrously tough times, as well as a warm memory from childhood for a lot of people. One variation of the classic rice pudding was a Swedish rice ring, which would mostly be served at Christmas or a family get-together, but it eventually extended into daily use too. The dish first started off as something you'd only find in Scandinavian communities, and they'd really make heaps of the stuff. Enough to go around a big family of 6 or 8 with a bowl for each, and it makes sense too since it was made using some pretty average ingredients. Stuff like rice, milk, and cream were all you needed to get a Swedish rice ring going. The way it differed from normal rice pudding is in how the dish was originally always made with some kind of spice and topped with fruit or served alongside jam. Later on, when it expanded past the Scandinavian locale and got adopted into widespread use, people started using nutmeg and cinnamon as well. Some scant cookbooks might still recall the dish and the times where it was a great comfort meal, but a lot of the new ones don't really remember it anymore. Sloppy Joes have been a staple in American school cafeterias since their introduction in the mid-20th century. This dish features ground beef or pork that is sautéed with onions and garlic until browned, then simmered in a savory tomato-based sauce seasoned with Worcestershire sauce and other spices. The thick, hearty mixture is then spooned onto soft hamburger buns, creating a filling and flavorful sandwich that is both messy and delightful to eat. The preparation requires minimal kitchen equipment and ingredients that are staples in most school pantries, making it a cost-effective choice for feeding a large number of students. Moreover, the ability to prepare the meat mixture ahead of time and quickly assemble the sandwiches during busy lunch periods enhances its practicality. The familiarity of the flavors, combined with the satisfying nature of the sandwich, ensures that Sloppy Joes remain a cherished option within school meal programs. Cheese soufflé, a sophisticated culinary delight, found prominence in 1970s dining rooms. Originating in France, the soufflé's name derives from the French verb souffler, meaning to puff. The first recorded recipe for soufflé appeared in Vincent La Chapelle's 1738 culinary book. A cheese soufflé is made with a base of bechamel sauce, into which grated cheese, traditionally Gruyère or Comté, is folded. Egg yolks are then incorporated, followed by stiffly beaten egg whites, which provide the soufflé its characteristic airy texture. The mixture is poured into a buttered and breadcrumb-dusted soufflé dish and baked until it puffs up and turns golden brown. The delicate balance of flavors and textures, combined with its dramatic rise, makes cheese soufflé a culinary masterpiece that showcases the chef's skill and precision. Speaking of those times, another really good source of protein was catfish, and one of the best ways to have it was fried catfish with hush puppies. This is again something that'll take us right to the heart of Southern cooking if we eat it. Along those rural places near rivers, lakes, ponds, and other bodies of water where you could find fresh catfish in abundance. Hush puppies were something made with fried cornmeal batter and were a popular dish to give to soldiers during the Civil War, so all in all, this dish was really light money-wise. Some basic Cajun spices or a Southern spice blend would make it even better into a real full-fledged meal that you could eat in comfort with the family. While it's been a big part of Southern cooking ever since the 19th century, it arguably had its biggest glory days in the 20th one as part of Southern soul food. There was a time in the 30s to 40s where soul food started to get into more and more menus across several places in the South, which wasn't always the case. Thank God it did, though, because steamed catfish definitely doesn't hit the spot quite like fried ones do with some golden brown hush puppies. Cowboy stew is a robust concoction traditionally associated with the outdoor cooking of American cattle herders. This dish typically includes a base of ground beef or other meat, combined with a hearty blend of potatoes, onions, beans, corn, and tomatoes, stewed in a richly seasoned broth. The stew's origins are rooted in the practical needs of cowboys during cattle drives across the American West, requiring meals that could be cooked in a single pot over an open fire. Cowboy stew's durability and popularity among outdoor workers underscore its role in the folklore of the American frontier. The recipe's evolution over time incorporated local and available ingredients, showcasing the stew's flexibility and the improvisational skills of those who made it. Peanut butter and pickle sandwiches present a surprising mix of flavors that demonstrates the adventurous side of American sandwich making. Originating in the mid-20th century, this combination pairs the creamy, slightly sweet taste of peanut butter with the sharp, crunchy tang of pickles. Often referred to as the Southern Comfort Sandwich in the southern United States, it features a liberal spread of peanut butter on bread with layers of thinly sliced pickles. This sandwich can be enjoyed open-faced or as a standard sandwich, and it pairs wonderfully with a cold glass of milk. The resulting meal is a bold blend of sweet, salty, and tangy flavors, offering a taste experience that's both unexpected and satisfying. Now here's something that started out in the bleakest of times but quickly became a sensation throughout America even after the Great Depression ended. You can't ever beat a fried bologna sandwich. I don't care what uptown neighborhood and what fancy restaurant you've been to. Something about that mix of bologna with cheese, mayo, and sometimes even bacon and sausages is unbeatable. It was something that was incredibly beloved by the public right after the Second World War ended, and the Midwest in particular couldn't really ever get enough of it. Diners, homes, rural areas, local breakfast joints, everyone was serving an affordable fried bologna sandwich. It was something you could rely on to both satisfy your taste buds, get you a healthy dose of protein, and not break your wallet if you had it daily, which was really asking for a lot in those times. Chili cheese dog. Casserole is a hearty, indulgent dish that embodies the essence of comfort food merging hot dogs, chili, and cheese in a bake that's rich in flavor. Assembled with slices of hot dogs and canned chili spread over a layer of dough, either made from scratch or using convenient crescent rolls, and topped with a generous amount of shredded cheese, this casserole is baked until the cheese is bubbly and the base is golden brown. This dish became a favorite for casual family dinners and informal gatherings, offering a spicy, savory, and gooey eating experience that drew rave reviews from diners looking for satisfying, easy-to-make meals. Combining two iconic American fast foods, the cheeseburger and French fries, into one dish, the cheeseburger French fry casserole emerged as a popular meal option in the late 1980s. This casserole layers seasoned ground beef mixed with ketchup, mustard, and chopped onions, topped with a layer of French fries, sprinkled with shredded cheese, and baked until golden and bubbly. Introduced in the kitchens of inventive home cooks during the 1990s, this casserole was a response to a growing interest in recreating fast food favorites at home, offering a fun and fuss-free dinner option that delighted both kids and adults alike. I know we've had some wacky sandwiches and spread combinations in the history of the nation so far. A lot of those started off as slightly divisive, but they ended up making a place for themselves, growing out of the niches they carved into the food culture in America. Unfortunately, for fluffernutter sandwiches, it really did stay mostly as a niche, but a pretty good one. This takes your typical bread, nothing really special, and your typical peanut butter, again, nothing you haven't seen around the block 1,000 times, and adds a bit of a twist. You ever think about what peanut butter could be stacked on top of some thick marshmallow creme? Me neither, until I was searching about the history of this dish and how they were a Massachusetts classic. Known as Liberty sandwiches and made by Emma Curtis in 1918, it was described as the perfect wholesome snack to get you a sugar rush whenever you needed it. Also, it was stupidly popular with children, especially around campfires. Here he is. Tater tots were born out of innovation in 1953 by the founders of Ida Golden and Francis Neefy Grigg. Utilizing leftover potato scraps from their French fry production, they created a new snack by chopping these remnants finely, mixing them with flour and seasonings, and forming them into small cylinders before deep frying them to a golden crisp. This process not only provided an efficient solution to food waste, but also produced a snack that was perfectly crispy on the outside while remaining fluffy inside. Tater tots are particularly popular as a side dish, but can also feature in recipes like casseroles, making them a versatile component of school lunches. The method of preparing tater tots involves deep frying, which, while requiring careful temperature control to achieve the perfect crunch without burning, fits well within the capabilities of large kitchen operations in schools. Lunchables were launched in 1988 by Oscar Mayer, a brand owned by Kraft Foods, aimed at simplifying school lunch preparation for busy parents while appealing to children with fun, customizable options. Originally conceived during a company brainstorming session, the idea was to create a product that could use the brand's existing meat products in a novel way. The initial Lunchables kit featured crackers, processed cheese, and sliced meats, and could be assembled into miniature sandwiches, mimicking the action of building with blocks, which resonated well with children. Over the years, Lunchables expanded to include various themes like pizzas and tacos. The marketing campaigns for Lunchables focused heavily on fun and convenience, successfully capturing the interest of both parents and children. The packaging also evolved from simple plastic trays to more vibrant and engaging designs that featured games and trivia, enhancing the appeal. These kits not only changed the way food is packaged, but also influenced children's lunch habits by providing a fun and interactive way to enjoy their midday meal. Indulge in the European-inspired rice pudding lunch bowl, where tradition serves comfort at your American lunch. Made from a simple mix of cooked rice, milk, sugar, and a hint of vanilla, this dish is cooked slowly until it becomes thick and creamy. The rice pudding lunch bowl could be customized with various toppings, such as a dusting of cinnamon, a dollop of jam, or fresh berries, providing versatility and appealing to different tastes. Once prepared, it's often garnished with a sprinkle of cinnamon, fresh fruit, or nuts, adding flavor and texture. Served either warm or cold, it was adaptable as a dessert or a light lunch, fitting seamlessly into any meal plan. Its versatility was appreciated in homes where cooks valued recipes that could be easily adjusted to suit the occasion, making rice pudding a reliable and satisfying choice. Creamed spinach in school cafeterias combines nutritional value with palatable presentation, making it a favored vegetable dish among students. The preparation starts with fresh or frozen spinach, which is thoroughly washed and then cooked down until it wilts. A creamy sauce made from a blend of milk, flour, and butter is prepared separately, seasoned with a hint of nutmeg or garlic to enrich the flavor profile. The spinach is then incorporated into the sauce, which gently coats the leaves, creating a smooth and appealing texture. This dish not only adds a vibrant color to the plate, but also increases the intake of greens in students' diets, providing essential nutrients like iron, vitamin A, and calcium. The combination of creamy texture and mild flavors often helps to introduce and encourage a preference for vegetables among younger children, supporting school nutrition programs in their goal to foster healthier eating habits. The fried bologna and cheese sandwich is a classic testament to the straightforward, comforting nature of traditional American cuisine. In the southern United States, this sandwich is sometimes affectionately called a redneck steak, highlighting its role as a staple among working-class families. This unpretentious sandwich comprises slices of bologna, fried until the edges curl, paired with melting cheese and enclosed between two slices of bread, then grilled or toasted. Its roots can be traced back to the early 20th century when bologna was a popular and economical meat choice, quickly becoming a favored lunch option in the Midwest and southern U.S. Typically found in diners and local eateries, this sandwich won over many with its uncomplicated yet satisfying blend of crispy, savory bologna and creamy, melted cheese, encapsulated in warm, toasty bread, a simple yet fulfilling dish loved for its comforting flavors. Introduced during the 1970s in the American broccoli casserole became a beloved dish that cleverly combined the need for convenience with the desire for flavorful meals. This casserole mixes chopped cooked ham and broccoli with a rich cheese sauce, often made creamier with the addition of a condensed soup, which is then topped with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers for texture and baked until golden. This dish exemplifies the era's ingenuity in using readily available, often pre-processed ingredients to create a dish that could serve as a one-pot meal, reducing both preparation time and cleanup. It became particularly favored for its versatility, allowing variations such as substituting chicken for ham or adding different vegetables, thus catering to a range of palates and pantry contents. The casserole's popularity surged as it appeared in magazine spreads and cooking shows, often recommended for its ability to double as a dish suitable for both weeknight family dinners and social gatherings. Pizza burgers burst onto the American culinary scene in the 1950s, offering a delightful mashup that appealed to anyone with a love for hamburgers and pizza. This novel creation typically consists of a hamburger patty, either grilled or fried, smothered with marinara sauce, sprinkled with mozzarella cheese, and then broiled until the cheese bubbles with joy, all served on a traditional hamburger bun. Some versions go further, adding toppings like pepperoni or green peppers to more closely mimic a pizza, or substituting the beef patty with spicy Italian sausage for an added kick. By the 1960s, pizza burgers had carved out their niche, especially in school cafeterias and fast food restaurants, offering a tasty twist on well-loved classics and capturing the era's zest for new and exciting food experiences. The stage for this dish goes all the way to Cleveland, Ohio, in 1970. The part of Ohio I'm specifically talking about is South Euclid, and the company I want to tell you about is Amster Pizza Bagel, Inc. They first submitted the idea for pizza bagels to the Copyright Office in 1970, which was the first official birth of the dish. However, the idea was pretty much cooking up a long while before it got the fine print out of the way. You can credit Anthony DeMauro for that, since the actual first time he made one was in 1957. 13 years of messing around with and perfecting the recipe led to a show stealer of a product for Amster Pizza Bagel Inc., which a lot of other fast food chains found hard to compete with. They even had a catchy mid-90s slogan, which you'll probably remember if you were a millennial from those times. Pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, pizza at supper time, with an earworm of a jingle to go along with it. Crab Louis salad, reputed to have originated on the West Coast in the early 1900s, is a luxurious ensemble of crab meat, hard-boiled eggs, tomatoes, asparagus, and iceberg lettuce, dressed in a creamy sauce made from mayonnaise and chili sauce. This salad is often linked with the dining rooms of San Francisco and Seattle, where it was served as a gourmet item in the early 20th century. The inclusion of Dungeness crab, a regional specialty, underscores the salad's connection to the Pacific Northwest's seafood bounty. Its enduring popularity was fueled by the dish's association with elegance and affluence, making it a prized feature on hotel and restaurant menus. Additionally, Crab Louis salad is a testament to the American culinary tradition of adopting and adapting regional ingredients to create dishes that become part of the national gastronomy. That wraps up my favorite forgotten working man lunches. Comment below which lunch you would enjoy the most, and don't forget to like and subscribe.